Today, we're going to talk about the fourth episode on Surah Al-Anaam. We know indeed that what they say grieves you, but it is not you they deny. It is the signs of Allah that the wrongdoers reject. What does this mean simply, or what is the reason it was revealed? First, what is the reason for the revelation of this verse? The reason is that the Prophet Muhammad was sitting, sad, alone, depressed, and upset. A lot of things, really. Anyway, Gabriel came to him and asked, "Why are you sad, O Muhammad?" The Prophet replied to him, saying, "These people have called me a liar. Who are they?" "The people of Mecca say that I am not a prophet, that I haven't come with a message, and that nothing has been revealed to me, 3 things. So Gabriel told him, "They know you are truthful," and then the verse was revealed. It simply means that God is telling the Prophet, "O Muhammad, we know that you are saddened because the people of Mecca have called you a liar and said that you are not a prophet, that nothing has been revealed to you, and that your message isn't true." That's it. So basically, what are they saying? They haven't really called you a liar. They're calling you a liar out of stubbornness and arrogance. But deep down, they know the truth. They know you are truthful, a prophet, and that revelation has come to you. The source here is Jami al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran by El-Tabari. What's the first question? It says, "We know," which is the part in red. Okay, guys, Q80 here is a particle of affirmation. That's what they're saying. So what's the opposite of that? We do not know. Messengers before you were also called liars, but they remained patient with what they were accused of and the harm they suffered, until our help came to them. And no one can change the words of God. Again, it's the same thing. Look, it says, "Our help came to them," we refers to God. But it doesn't say, "No one can change our words," does it? No, it says, "No one can change the words of God." Same thing. It means, "O Muhammad," it's telling you, "O Muhammad," that all the nations rejected their prophets. But those prophets were patient, and you should be patient too. And in the end, God will grant you victory. What's the source? Al-Razi's Keys to the Unseen. The question here, really, is the same thing. They were patient with their people's lies until our victory came to them, we, meaning God. And then after that, it says, "No one can change, not our words," so that the context stays consistent throughout. No, it says, "No one can change the words of God." Verse 35, "And if their turning away is hard on you, then if you are able to seek a tunnel in the earth or a ladder to the sky, so you could bring them a sign, but if God had willed, he would have gathered them all to guidance, so do not be among the ignorant." The meaning. God is telling the Prophet, "O Muhammad, if this matter, if you are really feeling it strongly inside, if you are very upset and saddened, according to the first verse we started with, meaning, if you are carrying a heavy burden inside because they are calling you a liar, that is, the polytheists of Mecca are saying you're a liar, that you haven't brought a message, that nothing has been revealed to you, and all that talk. If all this talk is really weighing heavily on you, pressing hard on your spirit, then, by God, go ahead, dig a tunnel in the earth or climb up to the sky on a ladder if you can, and bring them a sign to convince them, to make them leave disbelief and believe." It's a kind of gentle reproach, like, "What are you upset about? Let them disbelieve, my brother, that's just how it is." He says, "And if Allah had willed, he would have made them all believers." Okay, if Allah had willed, he would have gathered them all upon guidance. What does it mean, gathered them upon guidance? If God wanted, he would have made them believers. You're really upset that they're disbelievers and that they're calling you a liar. If God wanted, he would have guided them, he would have gathered them all upon guidance. You see? But it's God himself who doesn't want that. Why? Because if God gathered them all upon guidance and made them believers in him, that would conflict with God's assignment to humans, giving them free will and responsibility. Who said all of this? This meaning is from Majma al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran by al-Tabarsi. And what is the linguistic difference? What is the linguistic difference between walatakunana and walatakan, falatakunana, and falatakan? The second question, is God challenging the prophet to dig a tunnel in the earth or to ascend to the sky with a ladder? I mean, even if it's just for the sake of making it impossible, you know. And then, is ascending to the sky, assuming it happens, done with a ladder? Well, didn't the prophet ascend to the sky during Isra and Miraj riding a winged mule? So why here specifically would he ascend to the sky with a ladder? Yeah, let's pay attention to this. 36. But only those who listen will respond. And as for the dead, God will resurrect them, then to him what? Look, I mean, what are you? And the dead, God will resurrect them. It's God who resurrects them, not the dead. We resurrect them, then they return to us. No, it's the dead. God will resurrect them. God is speaking about himself, and the dead, God will resurrect them, then to him they will return. So honestly, the way the pronouns are used is still a bit, what? It's a little uncomfortable. It simply means, to put it plainly, those who will believe in you, Muhammad, are the ones who accept your message. But as for those with dead hearts, God will resurrect them after death to hold them accountable for what? For their deeds in the hereafter. But the main point here, brothers, is that this is from Al-Firozabadi's interpretation of the Quran. All right. Now, pay attention. Pay attention, because we're about to get to verse 37. And they said, why has no sign been sent down to him from his Lord? Notice what was said in verse 35. And if we had willed, we could have gathered them all upon guidance. So, what is being said here? Say, and they said, why has no sign been sent down to him from his Lord? Say, pay attention here, that God is able to send down a sign, but he doesn't send one. So, once, he is able to gather them all upon guidance and make them believe. And another time, in verse 37, he is able to send them a sign, but he still won't, for the same reason, which is the realm of responsibility. So that he gives humans the freedom of choice, and so he can hold them accountable in the end, whether for rejection or acceptance, for reward or punishment. All right, and the rest of the verse says, but most of them do not, what? Do not know. Exactly. So, verse 37, my friend, means that the polytheists of Mecca did not believe in the Quran, and they were unable to produce even a single surah like it, the shortest surah in the Quran. They couldn't come up with anything like it. And, mind you, they asked for the Prophet to bring down angels to them. They told him, no, angels have to come down from the sky, the ones you say are from God. The one you claim is God, he should come and say that you are a prophet. So God commanded him to respond to them. What did he tell him to say? He told them that God is able to send down a sign that would make them believe, but he doesn't want to. But God did not will to send them the sign to make them believe, because that would conflict with God's assignment to mankind, giving them free will, responsibility, and the reckoning in the hereafter, whether as reward or punishment. Who is the source here saying this? It's Fath al-Qadir by al-Shawkani. So, just keep that in mind. I want to point out a very important point. Pay attention to what is being said here. And who said it? The polytheists of Mecca. So, who does the statement belong to? Not to God, the statement belongs to the polytheists of Mecca. Because if I were a journalist covering the American elections, and this candidate said something and that candidate said something else, then when I go back to my newspaper or TV channel, I would say, and candidate so-and-so said it, so who does the statement belong to? To the disbelievers. And who is reporting it? The Quran. So what does it say here? And they said, say, yes, say, God is able to send down a sign, but most of them. The point I want to highlight here is what? That if the Quran were in the preserved tablet, and if the Quran were as ancient as God himself, like people say good people, as they put it. So, simply put, that would mean the polytheists of Mecca are as ancient as God himself. Let's move on to verse 38, where it says, "There is no creature on earth nor bird that flies with its wings except that they are communities like you. We have not neglected anything in the book. Then to their Lord they will be gathered." What's the story here? We need to move quickly. The meaning here is that the creatures in this world are of two types. Either they walk on the ground or they fly. So either they are creatures that walk on the earth or birds that fly in the air. Both are communities, just like humans. They know God. By the way, birds and animals know God. Donkeys, cats, dogs, sparrows, and all these creatures declare the oneness of God, praise Him, and pray to Him just like humans do. They understand, get along with each other, recognize one another, form friendships, do everything, and strive to earn their sustenance. All of them will be resurrected on the day of judgment and will be held accountable, just like humans. Who is saying this? These are the communities of birds, flies, insects, cockroaches, and all those creatures. They are communities just like you. That's what the interpreter says, not me. So, who is the scholar here? He has a chapter on interpretation in Mani al-Tanzil by Al-Khazin, and those who deny our signs are deaf and dumb in darkness. Whomever Allah wills, He leads astray, and whomever He wills, He sets on a straight path. Of course, as we said before in 35 and 37, 35. Alright, let's just proceed. In what way? Let's keep it organized as we've been doing, and let's stick with 39 first and explain its meaning. Its meaning, O Muhammad. The verse tells him that the people who denied Allah's signs are like the deaf, the mute, and the blind all at once. Meaning, pay attention, deaf, they don't hear, mute, they don't speak, blind, they don't see. Exactly. So he tells him, whoever Allah wills to be misguided, He lets him follow his own desires, basically. Why is that? Because he turned away from the truth, completely, and whoever Allah wills to guide, He guides him, because he followed the verse, followed the truth. Who's the source here? Al-Wasit in the interpretation of the Quran by Sheikh Muhammad Syed Tantawi. Alright, now let's get to the questions. First, here it says with our signs, that's a first-person pronoun. He misguides him and makes him, that's a third-person pronoun. Notice, he misguides him, that's God. So who is the one speaking about God, saying whomever He wills, He misguides and makes him? Why not just say we misguide him and make him? But look, it says with our signs, it didn't say with God's signs or anything. It's normal. So, what does that mean? What exactly did he say? And those who denied God's signs, I'll highlight it in a different color here so you know exactly where I am. And those who deny God's signs, deaf and mute in the darkness, whomever God wills, He misguides, and whomever He wills, He sets on a straight path. So what's the problem? Really, I honestly want to understand, and those who denied our signs, the deaf and mute in the darkness. Whoever we will, we misguide, and whoever we will, we set on a straight path. So, we followed a path. We followed a line. Just so I can keep up with you, our signs here is a first-person pronoun. He wills, He wills, He wills, He misguides him, He misguides him, He wills again. He sets him, He. You get it? No one says you were forced. Alright, fine, that's it. You understand. You get it? So, what is the truth here? What is he actually saying? I want to ask a question about verse 39, where it says, the question is, Why did God misguide those polytheists, the ones who denied the signs? Because he says, and those who denied our signs, he describes them first, deaf, dumb, and blind, and all these things are very clear. Then he says, whomever God wills, he leads astray. So here, dear friends, why? The main question is, why did God misguide those who denied the signs? Why? For what reason? I mean, I understand that the one who denies the signs does so by his own will, by his human will. I mean, he could reconsider and turn back from his disbelief one day. But God's will to misguide the deniers, this cannot be changed. And let me tell you something, there were people who were disbelievers, who were against the Muslims, and then they just came back, no problem. They were against the Prophet Muhammad, and all of them plotted, some of them even had elaborate schemes, by the way. For example, there was someone who was against Islam, like Khalid ibn al-Walid and others, and they came back. So these people denied God's signs very clearly. So why not just leave them be? You get what I mean? Just leave them in their disbelief. I mean, no. Don't interfere with your divine will, that can't be changed. Just hold them accountable in the end. But then they say, no, it's whoever God wills, he misguides them. Alright then, so that's a divine decision that humans have no say in. Okay, and he also said before, in verse 25, which you all remember, and we placed coverings over their hearts so they wouldn't understand it, and deafness in their ears. Well, isn't that God intervening with his divine will again, putting a veil over their hearts and a barrier in their ears so they can't understand the Quran? That's the same problem again. Why does God intervene here with his will to misguide people at one time, and put, barriers on their hearts and in their ears, or a veil over their hearts and barriers in their ears at another time? Why, if you already say they disbelieved, they went astray, and they chose misguidance? Just leave them be and judge them in the end. Why intervene with his will to increase their misguidance even more? Why? Honestly, I don't know. Alright. Now, the question is, if God was able to guide them in verse 35. He said if God had willed, he would have gathered them all to guidance. I don't want to go back to the text. Going back and forth like that, you know. Just reminding you, that's all. Alright. If God is able to guide them but didn't, because of the matter of responsibility, and I don't want to repeat it again. Alright, that's in verse 35. And if God is able to send down a sign that would make them believers, but he didn't send one, that's in verse 37. God is able to send down a sign, but he didn't send one, right? Because of the areas of responsibility, and because he gives humans the freedom to choose and then holds them accountable in the end. Alright, he refused. God refused to unite them all on guidance once, and God refused to send them a sign that would make them believers once. Alright, so why didn't he just leave them in verse 39? Because it's the same reason related to the areas of responsibility. Why do you interfere in leading people astray? That was my question. Go back to verse 35 and verse 37. You'll find that he could have guided them. He didn't guide them because of the areas of responsibility, but in verse 39, he intervened to misguide them. I didn't get that. I don't understand it. I assume that God is neutral. He neither misguides nor guides. He just leaves us to go on, each person with their own mind. You threw the rope over our backs. You told truth and falsehood. Since you rejected it once. If God had willed, he could have gathered them all to guidance, but he didn't. And God is able to send it down, so why didn't he? Why, in verse 39, does he let people go astray? I don't get this part. Honestly, This point needs clarification from people who aren't emotional. People who have a bit of sense, you know. All right. So, what should we take from this? Let's take it. Comparing 35, 37. You'd say, put those on one side and 39 on the other. That's the idea. Me, I think I claim that God shouldn't intervene, neither in guidance nor in misguidance. Leave me alone until you judge me. But that's basically the story. But for you to intervene and lead us astray, and then want to judge me in the end, that's a whole different issue. It's something I just don't get. All right. 40. Tell me, have you seen that you come? If the punishment of Allah comes to you or the hour comes to you, do you call upon other than Allah if you are truthful? This is verse 40. The truth is that as a driver, I see it as yours, not mine. What does that mean, guys? This means that he was reading this aleph without the aleph that is in red. I showed you your village. Say, not have you seen, but say I showed you. That's better. This is how Al-Qisai used to recite it, exactly like this. It means that Allah commanded the Prophet to tell the disbelievers that if the punishment of your Lord comes to you, just as it came to those before you, like the people of Ad, Hud, the mud, and so on, or if death comes to you, are you then going to call upon the idols and statues you used to worship, which can't even help themselves? Are they going to help you in that situation? And pay attention, it is Allah who has control over your harm and your benefit. That's the whole verse. That's the story. That's the meaning. So, the meaning again is that Allah is telling the Prophet, O Muhammad, say to the disbelievers, if punishment comes to you like it came to Hud, Ad, and the mud, or if death comes to you suddenly, who are you going to call upon in that situation? Are you going to call upon the idols that can't even help themselves? Or will you call upon Allah, who has control over everything harm and benefit? That's the meaning of the verse, right? Alright, actually, the comprehensive explanation of the sciences of the Quran describes it very well here. It also says, the punishment of Allah, not anyone else. Are you paying attention to that? It says, if the punishment of Allah comes to you, not our punishment. You see the difference, not anyone else, just Allah. Right, right. Someone is talking about Allah. This doesn't need explanation. A lot of people, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, 21. Honestly, I don't want to take too long. But unfortunately, I'm constrained. But I'll wrap it up quickly. Rather, it is him you call upon, and he removes what you call upon him for, if he wills. And you forget what you associate with him. All right, here's the meaning. O disbelievers, you disbelievers will seek help from Allah so that he may remove your hardship, if he wills to remove it from you. So when the punishment comes upon you, you'll forget your polytheism, you'll forget that you were disbelievers. You know. All right. So, who's the scholar saying this? Who's the scholar here? It's from the Tafsir al-Hidayah al-Bulyu al-Mihaya by Malik ibn Abi Talib. Here, he says, it is him, this is that second word. Right? Rather, it is him. And then he goes back and says, he removes. And then he says, if he wills. All of these are third-person pronouns referring to God, about God. And then he goes back and says, what? You call upon, whatever you call upon. You forget, you associate partners. These are second-person pronouns, addressing the listener. I'm sorry, these are second-person pronouns. You're talking to someone, saying to them, you call upon, whatever you call upon, and you forget. The prophet is speaking to someone in front of him about God. It's not the words of God. Well, he could have just said, rather, you call upon us, so we remove what you call upon us for if we will, and you forget what you associate. I mean, the language is easy and flexible for us. So, who is the one speaking about God here? That's the point. So here, someone is talking about God using the second person pronoun. He's speaking to them directly, from himself to them, you know. And here, this third party is speaking to them about God. To the polytheists, about God, just so things are clear. All right. Verse 42 says, "And we certainly sent messengers to nations before you. Then we seized them with suffering and hardship so that they might humble themselves." Here, sir, it means, and indeed, before you, O Muhammad, we sent messengers to their own peoples, and they were stronger than your people of Mecca, those who were upsetting you so much. So he punished them with poverty and affliction, hoping they would turn back from their disbelief. And what does this verse do? It comforts the Prophet and reminds him of the conditions of the previous nations. Who is the moderate jurist in the interpretation of the Quran? It's Sheikh Mohammed Syed Tantawi. The question, does God punish disbelievers in this world to force them to believe, or does he hold them accountable for their disbelief in the hereafter? The interpreter who says that God brought them affliction and punished them in this world so that they would believe. He punished them in this world so that they would believe. He tests them with poverty, illness, and hardship so that they would believe. Is this a way to faith? And then what does he say to me? He says, we sent messengers to nations, seized them with suffering so they might humble themselves before God. I don't understand so that they might humble themselves in the Quran. What if they don't humble themselves? Because, you know, this, so that they might think. By the way, this suggests that God doesn't know how they'll react. So that they might, will they humble themselves or not? That's what so that you might means, like, so that you might believe me or you might not, or so that you might go or you might not go. That's why I don't understand the word so that in the Quran, because it doesn't work, it doesn't befit God. Honestly, the word so that is the same thing. We sent messengers, so we seized them. That's a first person pronoun, folks. We sent, so we seized. That's a first person pronoun before you. That's a pronoun addressing the Prophet. So here, the speech is direct from the speaker, the sender, who is God, to the addressee, who is the one being sent to, the Prophet. Here, the words, just keep that in your mind like that. Look, he's saying to him, and indeed, God has sent messengers to nations before you, Muhammad. So God sees them with hardship and adversity so that they might humble themselves. So here, in verse 42, there's a direct conversation between the speaker. We sent to the addressee before you, and pay attention, this is between us, between God and the Prophet. This is direct. It doesn't need any explanation. It doesn't even need interpretation, really. Anyway, verse 43. Honestly, I don't know, I'm sorry, but I have to wrap up these verses like this, because the next episode is about a completely different topic. It has nothing to do with gold at all, or, well, it's a bit different. 43. But why, when our punishment came to them, did they not humble themselves? But their hearts became hardened, and Satan made attractive to them what they used to do. What does this mean? It means that our punishment did come to them, those people of Mecca, but they still did not believe. See, even though God punished them, they still didn't believe, and their hearts became hardened, and Satan made their disbelief and arrogance seem appealing to them. So even God's punishment didn't work on them. You see, in the end, it was Satan who won. Why? Because the punishment came to them. The message came, but they didn't believe it. The punishment came, but it didn't affect them. You see, but their hearts became hardened, and Satan made attractive to them what they used to do. They kept on, even in the face of God's punishment. So, who is the interpreter or the jurist here? It's Ma'alim al-Tanzil by al-Baghawi. So, did Satan win against God in this match, at least for them? Because even God's punishment didn't work, and Satan made their actions seem attractive to them, or what is he saying here? You see, so here it's the same thing. He says, our punishment, what does that mean? So, why then, when our punishment came to them, here, what does the pronoun refer to? It's the first person pronoun. Our punishment, that's us, God. But their hearts became hardened, and Satan made their deeds seem attractive to them here. All right, let's continue. Honestly, I don't know if this is too much for you or what, but when they forgot what they had been reminded of. Verse 44. We opened to them the gates of everything, until, when they rejoiced in what they were given, we seized them suddenly, and at once they were in despair. All right, here's the real point. The meaning. Just give me a second, because the computer is about to run out of battery. Let me plug it in. So, the meaning here is that the polytheists didn't take heed of the warnings about punishment and hardship. I mean, even though there was talk about punishment and all that, they still turned away from faith. There was just no use. So what does God do? He says, we lured them on. This isn't about me. We lured them on and opened for them the doors of goodness until they became happy and felt secure, and thought that this goodness was because their disbelief was right, and then bam, we seized them suddenly. So, what does God do? He gives them good things, and when they feel safe and enjoy the blessings, they start to think that this goodness came to them because they're on the right path. Then God took them suddenly, while they were unprepared. They went from joy to sorrow, but after what? They were happy. I mean, honestly, this verse, look, when they forgot what they had been reminded of, God opened up, see here, the pronoun, he opened for them the doors to everything, and when they rejoiced, we seized them all of a sudden. And notice here, the commentator, if you opened Faf al-Qadir by al-Shawkani. The question here is, did God grant the idolaters pride just to take them suddenly while they were unprepared? Is that really possible? Honestly, why not take them at any other time? I mean, what's the problem? Honestly, I didn't understand this point at all. So here he says, we opened and we seized them again. We opened is a first person plural pronoun. And we seized or we seized them. That's also a first person plural pronoun. I just don't get it. So, we opened for them the gates of everything, and when they felt secure and rejoiced in what they had received, we took them by surprise. Honestly, I really don't understand this. All right. The last verse, I'm really sorry. So the last remnant of those who did wrong was cut off, and praise be to God, Lord of the worlds. Here, the real meaning is that God cut off the lineage of the polytheists, and they were wiped out so that no descendants remained for them, and praise be to God for their destruction. Who's saying this? Al-Jami Liakam al-Quran by al-Qurtubi. The real question is, why did he use the phrase, so the last remnant of those who did wrong was cut off? Why did he use the passive form, was cut off? Even though the one who did the cutting is clear and known, it's God who cut off the lineage of the polytheists. It's God. So honestly, I didn't really understand this verse very well. But in any case, thank you so much. I really appreciate your patience.